Imagine a world where more women have the time to fully explore their genius. Welcome to She Rebel Radio, the UK's podcast for women leaders and founders ready to unlearn conventional rules and lead their businesses of significance. Hailed for counter-status quo ideas and a whole dose of feminine perspective, this is our International Women's Day series, sponsored by our headline partners, Natwest. My name's Lulu Minns. I host retreats and create spaces for women leaders to explore their genius. And today, I'm going to create that same space right here for you on this podcast. Welcome to episode 117 of She Rebel Radio, Embrace Support with Luke Pamflett. Luke is the current London Ecosystem Manager for Natwest, our headline partners for this International Women's Day series. Luke has been delivering Natwest's entrepreneurship strategy across London and the South East by expanding the network which nurtures growing businesses, supporting entrepreneurs to develop themselves as leaders and accelerate their business growth. Now, 4 years after the Rose Review, which launched the same year as we began She Rebel Radio, CEO of Natwest, Alison Rose, has commented on the high potential of female-led businesses in the top 100 list. And together, Luke and I handpicked 6 of those entrepreneurs from the Female Founders Top 100 to watch list. So if you haven't checked out those episodes, please do. And we also co-hosted a Women in Business event in Bishopsgate in London on the 22nd of February, which was an amazing afternoon with amazing feedback, which I think is still coming into Luke's inbox. Luke has worked previously as a growth enabler of businesses for NatWest since 2018, and he's excited to be here, aren't you, Luke?
Yes, very much so. Thank you for having me, Lulu. And yeah, the inbox is certainly flooded with some amazing feedback we had from our event last week.
Yeah, it was such an amazing event, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But to honour our International Women's Day 2023 series, where we kicked off with embracing 2023 and the sacred, I'd love to know, what is going to be sacred to you this year?
Yeah, so for me, I ultimately want to help remove barriers to businesses and support UK SMEs at almost every stage of their life journey. So that's from startup right to the end, whether you want to exit or grow your business even more. And that's through learning, introducing them to networks, expertise, and funding. And obviously, whilst I know this isn't achievable on my own, making that real impact to businesses and business owners is something that's definitely sacred to me.
Yeah, amazing. And what 3 things are you going to personally be embracing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the first thing is definitely, I think, network and partnerships. So the creation and maintenance of local and regional networks to help build entrepreneurial communities, particularly female-led and ethnic minority businesses. The second for me is learning, so providing accessible learning and support to SMEs to overcome any barriers they have to growth and ultimately their start. And then the third for me is all about the delivery. So through the learning and networks, to be able to increase survivability and growth rates of businesses would be amazing in what we know is such a challenging environment at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with network, it's so important to women and diverse groups in general to have the importance of access to network. And I think we found that at the Women in Business event of women finding a real room that felt relatable to them. I felt like that really came across at the event on the 22nd of February. Did you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the buzz and energy in the room was amazing to hear and see and feel. Having that network and that environment for everyone to speak freely and share their achievements and challenges is such a great environment for them to do that in.
Yeah, absolutely. And me being me, made sure I heard from every single woman in that room. And we explored a collective vision of more women having the time to explore their genius, which is really a question that we continue to examine and explore on this podcast. What would that world look like to you, Luke, if women had more time to explore their genius, particularly, in business?
Yeah, so this is one of my favourite parts of our event that we had, and a great conversation where we went around the whole room to discuss this. And for me, it creates more women in leadership roles. This would help with a range of perspectives in the workplace, a diverse workplace. And with those different perspectives and a diverse workplace, you generally get better decision making, collaboration, and then problem solving. Ultimately, it's the bottom line of any business that then would improve off the back of all of that. I know there's some research studies out there that actually shows that a more diverse leadership team is more likely to have an above average profitability level, which is so important, as I said, in this challenging environment that we're in at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the ladies, Claire, who has a business, I think she makes sports bras for larger ladies, and they're very eco-friendly because we've connected on LinkedIn afterwards. So shout out to you, Claire. I'm trying to remember your surname, but shared instead of about the fire, she shared that instead of being the fire, women become the fire. Instead of fighting fires, women become the fire. And there was real power in that statement. And I think it went down really well, and also acknowledged that so often women do have that less time to explore their genius, and how we can really shift the dial on that. So it was a powerful statement.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it is that part of the session was I think my favorite, because to be able to go around the room and hear from all of the female leaders within that room was, as I said, was fantastic.
Yeah, and recognizing that sometimes people are reluctant to share. I could see the fear on some people's faces, but then really got into it, which was really powerful to see. Now, the top 100 female founders or female-led businesses to watch list was published in November 2022. What excited you about this list, and what were some of your favorite entrepreneur stories?
Oh, that's a great question, and I think to pick a favorite or some of the favorites would be very difficult because they was all so good. But I'm going to go back to the first part. So yeah, the top 100 list is something that I suppose not only this year but every year it's so exciting to see, because it's a celebration of the top 100 female founders who are pushing the boundaries, redefining their success, but most importantly, inspiring others. It's such a fantastic partnership and work for us, as it shines a spotlight not only on the amazing women who are pioneering in their field, but also the women who can be that role model to help inspire even more female-led businesses for future generations. I think this year there was over 700 applications that come in of really high quality women, and this really encouraged women to shout about their achievements and get comfortable in doing so. So often we see women tend to shy away from their successes and self-promotion, just a bit like what we've just spoken about there. And to receive this number of applications, just to have that level of application, 700, it just starts to break down that barrier. And to see so many applicants from a different range of backgrounds, sectors and regions across the UK is fantastic.
Yeah, and it really, as you say, Luke, encourages women to celebrate their achievements, which is something that we're socially conditioned even more so not to do. I think in the UK in general, we're less likely to do it than in America and Canada, but then adding women in as well, even more less likely to do it. So it's great to see that women, were really given that opportunity to celebrate themselves and their achievements. And I know from speaking to these 6 entrepreneurs that we've had on the podcast for this series from that list, the power of network, they've all, I think pretty much all of them, mentioned the event that followed on from being on the top 100 and the connection that they've made with each other, which is incredibly powerful.
Yeah, definitely. And I suppose to answer the second part of your question about some of the favorite entrepreneur stories, I'm going to plug some of the previous episodes and say for everyone to go back and listen to them, because they are some fantastic stories, and well worth a listen. Of course, all of the top 100 are, but there's a little plug for the other previous episodes there. But yeah, I think to have that network, it's something we talk about so much, and a lot of entrepreneurs that we speak to, sometimes ultimately it's not about what you know, it's who you know, and who you can connect with to, as I said, sort of grow and succeed in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we've really encouraged the entrepreneurs in this series to embrace something of particular expertise to them, as I've kind of seen it from the outside in, looking at their businesses from the outside of a particular topic that they could really embrace. And all our guests really went there with that as well. So that was great to see them, you know, embracing and embodying their expertise in a particular area and celebrating that. So now, Natwest provides training to their staff on supporting female entrepreneurs. Can you tell us more about that and some of your insights?
Yeah, of course. So, as one of the UK leading banks, NatWest recognises a really vital role in improving gender balance within the entrepreneurial ecosystem across the UK, and supporting women in business is a part of one of our core values that we have. So, yeah, as you mentioned, back in 2012, we launched our NatWest Women in Business Specialist Programme. And this programme is all designed to help our colleagues to become best in class at understanding female entrepreneurship. And as long-standing supporters of women in business, NatWest understands sort of the various challenges that women might face when setting up at their business, and equally the running of their business once they're set up. Now we have over 1,000 women in business specialists across the UK who provide that tailored to support for women looking to start up and succeed into their business, and ultimately to help achieve their business ambitions.
Amazing. And yeah, 11 years ago, really creating an expertise within that in terms of the timing of that work was so incredibly important, I think. So we're just seeing women rise and rise, which on that subject, can you give us an update on the current Rose Review statistics?
Yes, certainly. So, 2022 Rose Review Progress Report on female entrepreneurship has come out within the last week. And for those new listeners, or maybe people that don't know the Rose Review, the Rose Review sets out the full extent of the progress that we've made since 2019. So 3 years on, and it outlines the extra support needed for female-led businesses to thrive, and the challenges that they have faced during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Rose Review originally highlighted that if women started and scaled new businesses at the same rate as men, up to 250 billion of new value could be added to the UK economy, which is a massive, massive number. And yes, so some of the key highlights from the report show that over 150,000 female-led businesses were founded last year. That's twice as many than in 2018.
Amazing.
20.5% of all firm incorporations were all female led. That's risen 16% in 2018. And I think a really important thing for me is, while it's great to celebrate the successes that have been made, that there is still more room and more need for us to support these female entrepreneurs, particularly around funding and enabling entrepreneurship for initiatives such as mentorship. And then just, I suppose the last benefit that I've sort of picked up on, the review also commits to creating 3 million business support opportunities over 3 years. And just to put that into perspective, last year there was more than 800,000 places on programs and opportunities to access direct support for female founders, which in terms of having that opportunity and that potential to grow that number is just amazing. And then again, just another final stat from the data point from the review, it shows the greatest impact in female-led businesses was amongst 16 to 25-year-olds, which rose nearly 25%. And for me, that just demonstrates how instrumental relatable role models can be, especially for the young entrepreneurs of the future.
Yeah, what an incredible statistic. It's really, and you know, I think we shared, and I encourage the listeners to go back and listen to your previous colleagues that we've had on She Rebel Radio to see, you know, the growth of the Rose Review and you know, updates that are coming in. But that 250 billion opportunity as well is so important now more than ever, and with young people joining in, or young women as well, that's incredible to see. And I wish I'd known starting a business really at that age would have been a possibility. Absolutely. So how are you and NatWest going to be embracing more community and influence this year?
Yeah, so for me, and we've touched upon this in a previous conversation, but network is everything, and having that support system means that women can achieve so much more as a collective than individually. There is a lot more power in numbers than if something is attempted on your own or was attempted on your own. Being a part of a female-focused ecosystem will allow women not only to share challenges, but then be able to learn from one another. From my own experience, lots of female founders will share the same barriers. And I just think having that community and that network around will just enable learnings from each other in that safe environment, that safe created environment, which I think is so important. And NatWest are really great at building out ecosystems within communities across regions, particularly for women and minorities. And we will keep investing in this, in building out our networks and leveraging these to benefit female businesses. A brilliant example of this community building is within our London Accelerator Hub. We have 54% female-led businesses on the program, highlighting our level of support for women in business, but also showcasing the great network women leaders have accessible to them. And I'll go back to that great comment I made earlier of ultimately it's sometimes not what you know, it's who you know. And listening from some of your previous podcasts, I know you've touched upon this study before, and I use this quite a lot of the time for any teamwork building exercises. But there's that great study of geese, and geese never leave one behind out of their flock. And it's a great analogy to use when sort of explaining this.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think it's a really great analogy that lots of women in business really align with and find common ground with. So thank you for resharing that one, Luke. Now, why should we embrace support in our businesses as female entrepreneurs, and how important are male allies?
Yeah, so for me, male allies are really important. And again, there's evidence to show that when men are engaged with inclusion programs, 96% of businesses see progress compared to 30% when men are not engaged. That's a massive difference in terms of progress and succeeding, and almost having that barrier to not introduce a male ally potentially into their business. And for me, male allies can support progress towards gender parity and senior leadership in a number of impactful ways. So as a male ally, you can practically influence change of behaviours in workplaces. So for an example, shouldering the responsibility of facing down sexist behaviour in the workplace. For me, I'm extremely proud to be a male ally, as I feel it's so important to promote gender equality in business, but most importantly, more broadly in society. However, a key highlight of this is that yes, we have success. Yes, we're making some steps in the right direction. There is a lot of work still to be done within that space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There is. Now, what's next for NatWest? 5 years, well, 4 years after the Rose Review, and where can we find you, Luke?
Yeah, so when we launched the Rose Review, we set the aim of creating an environment that enables 600,000 new women-led businesses by the end of the decade. And we're making strong progress against this, and we've definitely got the steps in the right direction. And the Rose Review has now seen tens of thousands of female founders benefiting from increased access to funding, advice, and mentoring schemes. Meanwhile, thousands of students have received enterprise training, contributing to significant year-on-year growth in female-led startups, as we've just heard in some of the data points earlier. And we've also established major initiatives like investing in Women Code, designed to improve transparency and increase level of funding channeled to female entrepreneurs from across the investment landscape. This scheme commits leaders and investors to collect and report data about their performance, backing female-led firms. And in the past year, the number of signatories has increased 50%. So there's over 170 signatories on this now, representing over 1 trillion in assets under management, with more joining every month, which is just a crazy number to think of.
Yeah.
And I suppose for NatWest, in what we're looking to do in the future, we want to continue to support female-led businesses. Despite a challenging year for female entrepreneurs, the Rose Review shows that it's going from strength to strength, and we want to continue that, and have a full level of support for female-led businesses to start, scale, and grow their business. And then in terms of where to find me, I can be found on LinkedIn or Twitter through Luke Pamflett. I'll be able to send a link directly to my page, and I'm sure you'll be happy to leave it in the comments of the podcast.
Amazing, Luke. Thank you so much for sponsorship, for being with us on She Rebel Radio, and for being a male ally to women and female entrepreneurship.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
And ladies, that is almost a wrap, but you didn't think I was going to let you get away with it, leaving this podcast series without taking the time to consider what all of this means, the depth of the knowledge and wisdom shared by our guests means for you and your genius. So I'd love it if you could check out the show notes below and the 10 journaling questions that I wanted to leave you with, and whether you could go out somewhere in nature, by the beach, or find somewhere comfy at home, light some candles, and take the time to consider these questions. The first one is, what are you going to embrace in 2023? We've heard it's an incredible year for women in business. So what is it that you need to embrace for you for this to unfold in the best way? March is an incredible time of year for the beginnings of things. It's the spring equinox. It's where we can really plant the seeds of intention, and we kick it off with International Women's Day. So that's why it's my favourite time of year. So really take the time to consider what it is that you need to embrace in 2023 and what is sacred to you in 2023. The word sacred to me means to honour, to lift up to the light. What is it that is so sacred to you that you really need to prioritise this year? And what community will you be championing this year? Be that supporting or being part of. What community are you going to be championing this year? And how will you embrace your health? We've heard that we have very different health needs. We have that secular nature as women, and women in business. It's really critical that we prioritise our health and often our different way of doing things in order to be able to do that, to be the most powerful that we can be. So how are you going to embrace your health this year? Then we're going to move a bit more into your mission. What word could you redefine this year? That could be for your business or maybe for yourself. What word is it that you need to redefine this year? One word that comes to mind is lots of women say, oh, it's very selfish when maybe you need to redefine the word selfish. I don't know. Or something more in line with your business and your business mission. What bold steps could you be taking? What bold steps could you or are you going to be taking? And what would more conviction and confidence look like for you? Imagine all of the industries that have been so male dominated in the past being full of women that are really emboldened with their conviction and their confidence. And how is it that you can embrace more of your influence? As women, we can, as anyone, we all have influence over other people. So how is it that you can embrace more of your influence? And remembering our International Women's Day guest by Erin, she shared with us her 10% rule. It could be that you can embrace more of your influence by sharing 10% of your life, but sharing it so well that can really increase your influence. How can you embrace more technology and innovation? It is here. There is no getting away from it. We have heard from incredible women innovating in the tech space during this series. So what's it going to look like for you to embrace more tech and innovation? And I hope many of you would have learned a lot, quite a bit about tech throughout this series. And how is it that you can embrace more support? We really do need support from each other and our male allies. I've been absolutely blown away by the incredible support, particularly on LinkedIn for this She Rebel Radio International Women's Day series. We've had so many comments from men and sharing and supporting us like we've not seen before on She Rebel Radio. So it really signifies the movement of the times of supporting women in business. A big thank you to Natwest and the incredible growth at She Rebel Radio. So I want to say a big thank you to our listeners, to our guests, and we're so excited for our next series and what's going to be happening next. Do follow us for our 30 days of She Rebel Radio, where we're also going to be sharing our top 20 episodes since 2019, and I look forward to connecting with you more online. You've been listening to She Rebel Radio. We thank you for listening and thank our headline partners Natwest for sponsoring this series. If this episode has inspired you, please pass it on and share with at least one other incredible woman. And don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review. You can find out more about me and my work at lulumins.com or on most social media platforms.